Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up, the all-female sniper unit fighting for Syria's President Bashar al-Assad. Also, the power of literacy. We meet the man who's putting books into the hands of millions of girls. And turning pro, US women's ice hockey now has a professional league of its very own. But we begin in a country that's been devastated by war, and with Russia coming to the rescue of its ally, President Bashar al-Assad, Syria's death toll is on the rise. After more than 4 years of war, at least 250,000 people are dead, a number of which were killed by Assad's men and a few women. Our team on the ground met the all-female sniper unit fighting on behalf of Syria's strongmen.
This is Daraya, a little outside Damascus. Assad's army was accused of committing war crimes here in 2012 after the bodies of 330 civilians were found. These men don't want to talk about that. They've brought us here to meet a very specific unit, Assad's female snipers. Riham is 21.
The rebels usually hide behind the concrete facades. It's hard to aim right when we can't see them, but when I was in Jobar, I took down quite a few. I don't know how many exactly. Our mission is to destroy armed groups. We don't have time to count the bodies.
There are nearly 2,000 female snipers in the brigade, fighting on 6 fronts across Syria. They all signed up voluntarily.
In the beginning, my parents were against me joining the army, but later they encouraged me. When the war is over, I'll go back to a normal life. I would like to start a family and carry on defending my country and instilling patriotism in my children.
Professional, patriotic, sometimes even elegant, these young soldiers personify the regime's opposition to the Islamists and their quasi-medieval outlook. Showing women as the equals of male soldiers is also good for propaganda, of course. That's why we're here.
And moving on, and deaths of women from pregnancy-related causes have fallen by almost half across the world in the last 25 years. However, only 9 countries have achieved the targets set by the United Nations. This, according to a report released by UN agencies and the World Bank. The greatest improvement was in Eastern Asia, where the figure fell from approximately 95 deaths to 27 per 100,000 live births. Sub-Saharan Africa accounts for 2 out of every 3 deaths in the world. Now, of the 774 million adults who still can't read or write, 2/3 of them, that's more than 490 million people, are women. And ask any economist, when women are literate in a developing economy, the benefits are many. For instance, children of a literate mother are much more likely to complete their education. It's also essential in reducing poverty while boosting a nation's economic potential. Room to Read is a charity that works to eradicate child illiteracy and gender inequality in education. In the 15 years of its existence, it's helped some 10 million children in 10 countries. Recently, I sat down and spoke with its founder, John Wood, a former Microsoft executive. I asked him about Room to Read's work with girls.
There's quite a few stories of these young women I've met along the way who are at age 14 or 13, there's so many negative things that they're being told. Their parents may be forcing them to drop out of school. They may be told, girls in Zombie at age 13 are being told that it's time for them to think about getting married. And these girls just say they want to stay in school. They want to become a teacher. They want to become a nurse. They want to become a doctor. And what's most inspiring for me now is I get Facebook messages, I get WhatsApp messages from girls who have gone through Room to Read's program. I'm very proud to say that 73% of our graduates have moved on to university and tertiary. We all know that that's not only a humanitarian issue, it's an economic issue. Studies show that for every additional year of schooling a young woman receives, her eventual wages increase by 15%. So if you can get a girl through 6 additional years of school, her eventual salary will double. And we all know from studies in the developing world that when women get extra money, they tend to spend it on their family. Men, like me, we're not always so good at that. We often spend those extra dollars on ourselves. Women spend it on food, shelter, clothing, medicine, and education, education, education.
I was listening recently to the economist Jeffrey Sachs, and he was saying that as far as he was concerned, the sole way to deal with rising fertility rates in places such as Africa is to effectively improve and increase girls' education.
Definitely right. That's been proven through study after study after study that when women and girls delay marriage, they tend to have fewer children, they tend to have healthier families, they tend to have higher incomes. And so that's why I often say to the business community, like with a group like Room to Read doing girls' education program, it's a win-win because you get to have that humanitarian karma of knowing that, you know, in our case at Room to Read, over 30,000 girls have been enrolled in our long-term girls' education program. But you also know that you're going to be improving these economies. And I think what the best thing is this is a hand up, not a handout. It's not going to a rural village and throwing out a bunch of subsidized grain and saying, here, we're going to help you, we're going to feed you for a day or feed you for a week. When you feed the young minds and get kids to learn from a young age, this is something that lifts up all societies. And it's certainly something that when France moved to universal education, one of the first countries in the world to do it, you've benefited from this. America, where I had the privilege of growing up, education was something we just took for granted. But so many parts of the world, they don't take it for granted, and parents want this for their kids.
Do you still find resistance in some of these communities when you go in and you press that point about the need for girls' education?
Thankfully, we don't really face that much resistance. What we actually find is, if there's a word for the opposite of resistance, every year when Room to Read announces our goals for the year, we are oversubscribed. There are more governments and more communities who want to work with us than we have the capital to actually. So we are somewhat limited in how many communities we can say yes to. But the good news for that is I think that you can unlock that capital. That's one of my jobs and one of the team's jobs is to figure out how can we make sure that every local team at Room to Read, when those requests come in from the communities, we can say yes, as opposed to saying not yet or maybe.
I was interested to read that given your high-tech background, that you really don't think that the digital revolution is sort of relevant at this level of education, particularly with early school-age children.
Yeah, there's an adage in English that you don't put the cart in front of the horse. You have to put the cart behind the horse. Sometimes I think people think that you can throw technology at the developing world and it's going to radically change learning outcomes. And the history of this is it doesn't. Throwing a computer at a village in Tanzania that doesn't have electricity, that's off the grid, and that does not have trained teachers is not going to do much at all for these 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds. So we have a very, I think the crown jewel of Room to Read is our local language publishing program, where we're working with local authors and local artists to produce books in languages that have been overlooked by publishers. The for-profit publishers don't publish books in languages spoken by poor people. But if you think about the supply chain of poverty, a lot of it goes back to if a kid in Tanzania does not have a book in his or her mother tongue, how are they going to get literate from a young age? So Room to Read's now put over 16 million books into the hands of eager young readers, and I'm very proud of the fact that UNESCO gave Room to Read the Confucius Prize for Literacy, recognizing it with over 1,100 original titles. I often joke that we've become the biggest children's publisher you've never heard of because we're doing it in languages like Khmer, Kiswahili, Vietnamese, Nepalese, Sinhalese, Tamil, etc.
And you're using local writers and illustrators, aren't you?
Exactly, and they produce original content. So we could do the easy thing and take Pippi Longstocking or Tintin and go translate it into another language, but then kids are not going to see something that looks like their world. We want to work with local authors and local artists, and I do hope people can go to roomtoread.org and see some of our beautiful books that have been produced. But I think the key for Room to Read has always been local empowerment.
John Wood, I'm afraid we've run out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you'd like to find out more information about Room to Read, you can head to their website. That's www.roomtoread.org. Now, despite years of success at the Olympics, US women's ice hockey has never had a professional league of its own. That is until now. Not that they're in it for the money, however, whereas some of their male counterparts command annual packages of up to $16.5 million US. Women in the fledgling National Women's Hockey League are paid much more modest salaries of up to just $22,000 a year. William Edwards went to watch one of the new teams, the New York Riveters, play a home game.
It's game night here in South Brooklyn, but for the first time, it's professional women ice hockey players that the crowds are here to see. Named after iconic World War II worker Rosie the Riveter, the New York Riveters play at a former wartime airbase. They're one of 4 teams in the National Women's Ice Hockey League, the first ever salaried league for women in the US. While the NWHL is new, the Riveters already have plenty of fans.
I like seeing the girls play. It feels like girls are getting more out there and stuff, so instead of the guys, girls could do it too.
It's really good that the world has accepted that not only boys can play hockey, that women can be fierce and awesome too.
The USA women's team is often on the podium at the Winter Olympics, but until now players have had to rely on sponsorship and day jobs to make their passion pay. Riveters forward Madison Packer appreciates the newfound recognition.
Yeah, I think this is the first time that we've really gotten people interested in the game, people wanting to come out and support us, and first opportunity in the States at least that we have to be professional athletes and get paid for what we're doing, so it's pretty special.
In the team's first home game, visitors Boston Pride got the better of the Riveters, but the players here are in this for the long haul and hope that their biggest achievement will be inspiring more girls to get on the ice in the years to come.
And definitely a team to watch. And finally, to mark Armistice Day, the France 24 internet team have made a web documentary called Women at War. It features 2 British nurses who treated soldiers here in France. They were among many thousands from countries as far afield as Australia, New Zealand and Canada who nursed Allied soldiers. To watch the web documentary, just click on our website. That, of course, is www.france24.com. And that's it for now. And if you'd like to comment on what you've just seen, you can head to our Facebook page, France24 51%, or do send us a tweet at _51%. Thanks for your feedback so far, and please keep those comments coming in. Until our next program, bye for now.